We have big news. We have exciting news for you. Tell them what it is, Serena.
We are super excited to announce that we are starting our first membership this January 2024.
Yay! Membership.
So we're excited to let you know that we will be hosting a monthly membership where when you join, you will be
With us live in a Zoom room once a month for a workshop like we just hosted. It's going to be a workshop like that, one topic each month, a different topic. You might even help us come up with the following month's topic from inside our membership. Super excited to meet you. It was so fun meeting a few of you in our inaugural workshop. So we're really looking forward to that.
And when you are a member, you will also be receiving a monthly newsletter where I'm going to be a little more intimate and I'll be sharing the things that are working and the things that aren't working for me.
Yeah, like taking a tool that you've learned from the podcast and how you're implementing it and how well that worked, or maybe if it didn't work. And then Amma can put in my 2 bits worth. We'll see how that goes. But a membership newsletter and a membership live Zoom room workshop starting in January 2024. Can sign up through our Patreon link in the show notes, yeah?
Yes, everything will be in the show notes, and we can't wait to see you there, listeners.
We can't wait. Yay! When we respond immediately to our babies' needs, our newborns, our infants, and our toddlers, and our preschoolers, when we respond instantly to their needs, to their cues, to their cries, they learn to feel safe and secure. And from a place of safety and security, they grow their independence. Welcome to the We Are the Village Parenting Podcast.
Hi, my name is Serena, mother to 2 little ones.
And hi, I'm Lisa, also known as the Singing Amma. Amma means grandmother in Icelandic. I am a mama and an Amma.
In this podcast, I am learning to practice gentle, attachment-focused parenting. Amma Lisa is here to teach us why it's vital to our children's development and well-being.
And I come to the village with a background in early childhood education. I have been coaching and supporting parents along their parenting journeys for over 35 years. Together, we explore some easy to implement skills you can add to your parenting tool belt to help you create a happy, thriving family.
We invite you to grab your latte
or your tea
and come sit around the proverbial ancient fire with us each week.
When we come together to have a conversation where we'll be keeping it real, keeping it raw, right here with you in the wonderful world of all things parenting. Hi, it's Lisa, the Singing Amma here, coming to you again with a column that I wrote originally for the Fishbowl magazine on Salt Spring Island, British Columbia, Canada. And when I'm done reading this column, Mama Serena will join me and we'll have a deeper look together. Today's column is entitled, Just Say No to Cry It Out. Dear Singing Amma, we are exhausted, wondering what to do to get our baby to sleep through the night, or at least in longer segments of time. We tried the cry it out method, but it just didn't feel right. Your thoughts? Signed, Sleep Deprived Parents. Dear sleepy ones, being exhausted in the first year of a baby's life is normal and should be an expected outcome of welcoming a new baby, except it never is. People end up frustrated and annoyed by the interrupted sleep patterns in the early years of parenting. However, another completely normal aspect of infant life which parents often seek to find solutions for, is that our young are not designed physiologically, psychologically, or emotionally, socially to sleep through the night. Babies sleep primarily in the REM, or light sleep with frequent waking state, during which trillions of neuron connections and billions of nerve cells are, given the right conditions, developing at an astoundingly rapid rate. Let me read that part again. During this REM sleep that babies and newborn infants and through their infancy are designed, during that sleep where they wake frequently, during that sleep, trillions of neural connections and billions of nerve cells are developing at an astoundingly rapid rate. Wow. We are living in a culture that is perpetually exhausted, constantly pushing to do more, have more, succeed more. Couple that with living in isolated nuclear families without the village, where a mama is alone with her young for hours and sometimes even days on end without support. And we have a problem. Leaving our youngest and most vulnerable alone to cry themselves to sleep in a room far away from the care they depend on for their very survival, it's not the answer. Studies on infant brain development in recent years are corroborating this truth. An infant's cry, or cue, as it's known in the world of child psychology, is just that, a cue that something is needed, be it nourishment, hydration, bodily comfort, or simply and equally legitimately the security and potentially protective reassurance of a human body nearby. It is the primary job of the caregiving adult to respond to these needs. Co-sleeping with baby helps, or at least having babe in your room very nearby makes responding easier and way less sleep disturbing. Babies are not being bad, quote unquote, or becoming spoiled, quote unquote, when they cry to have their needs met. They are being babies with human needs. A baby left to cry it out, also known as CIO, does not learn to self-soothe, as some, quote, professionals would have you believe. Nor does it learn, quote, who's boss, end quote. Infant toddler brains are nowhere near these developmental levels. What is actually happening when babies left to cry eventually do quiet is this. The instinctual brain is deducing, eventually, that help is not coming, so they best quiet down to avoid attracting a potential predator. They are going into survival mode. Remember, we are mammals. This is instinctual. This shutting down behavior corrodes the attachment relationship integral to healthy emotional, social, and psychological development. In responding to a baby's cry, we are providing a secure environment conducive to the massive brain development that is encoded for these early years. Through nurturing, attachment bonding, human babies develop confidence, the ability to feel safe, to trust, to feel happiness, to feel lovable and loved, and eventually independence grows from the security and trust in their humans and in the world at large.
Hey, Emma.
Hey, Serena.
I'm so excited about this article because this is one of the first things that I learned as a parent, or maybe unlearned, because I was a big believer in the cry it out method until I had a baby.
Oh, this is so good to hear. What made you change your mind?
Well, you.
No,
But,
because you had your
well,
baby a year and a
yes,
half before you
yes.
met me.
Well, you taught me why, but
Okay.
just after having my baby, it was kind of
Mm-hmm.
like instinctual. And yes, crying out is a cue of something
Yes.
that they need. And
Yes.
not to brag, but thankfully, my daughter never cried so much that I didn't know what to do or what the problem was. It was very easy with her. It was either eating, sleeping, or her diaper. And
Here's what I want to tell you, love. Yes. And go ahead and brag. When you're
yeah.
doing awesome parenting, we're allowed to brag. That's in my books. But what I want to say is when we respond to our child's cues, our baby's cues, when they cry, it means I'm hungry, I'm thirsty, or I need my diaper changed. I'm uncomfortable.
Yeah,
So
and with
when you respond, that's what it is.
mhm.
It's actually really simple. Let me just interject real quick. When I was in college doing my early childhood education training, we had a fantastic psychology teacher. We learned some of the basics of child development and child psychology. And in one of the classes, she started with, how do you all feel about picking up an infant when it cries? I was like, well, yeah, they need us for something. The amount of people in that classroom, young women in that classroom who said, well, it depends what they're crying for. I was like, what? And one person actually said, well, if they're just crying for attention, then no, I wouldn't pick them up. It was an incredible conversation because our psychology teacher then said, our psychology professor then said, is attention not need enough?
Mm.
We're human beings. We are social animals. We need one another. If your infant or your child, or God forbid, your teenager needs your attention, which they all do. And the teenagers, I just said that because they won't want to admit it, but they still need us. If they cry out for us, then yes, attention is reason enough to respond. Absolutely.
Yeah,
Go ahead. I
even
interjected.
adults. No, but even
Yes,
adults, you
totally.
still need your parents, but
Or you need another loving human to
mhm.
respond to you in a loving way, right?
Yeah.
I have had I had a boyfriend a few years ago, and I was really sad about something very real. A dear friend had died, and he responded in a really negative way to me being so upset about her passing. And that was like big red flag. What?
Mhm.
So in any situation in life, whether it's something like the death of someone or the death of a pet, can be very upsetting for a child. But we're getting off topic. Let's go back to crying it out at bedtime about sleeping babies.
So yeah, I mean, with my experience, I exclusively breastfed my daughter. She never had colic or gas, or and I don't know, maybe it was I always wore her. If I wasn't carrying her, I had her in a wrap around my body. I co-slept, I still co-sleep, and a lot of people had, their opinions about it, and you're spoiling her. But I mean, at the end of the day, how long she's not even 2 yet. And I look back and I can't even remember when she was so tiny. So
Mm-hmm.
just even embracing the moments that she is so tiny, and she just came out of my belly. She was in there for 9, 10 months. And they're around warmth, they're attached to you literally, and then to come out and then have to sleep in another room and be so far and not feel your warmth and you
Mm-hmm.
by their side. Like my daughter, she it was not easy breastfeeding, but being with her and her as a newborn and infant was super easy, because it was either she needed to be breastfed, we had to go to sleep, and I'd sleep with her, and it was very convenient to just breastfeed. And when she would wake up, and I just roll
Yes.
over and she just drank and went back to sleep. She was never up all night. She was never it was just
Yeah.
really easy with her. And I feel like because every time she cried, it was just a cue, or I even got to it before she even had to cry, because she was always
Yes.
with me. I was always by her side. And thankfully, I was granted that opportunity. I didn't have to go out and work right away, or I got a year with her. So we really bonded. And
Yes.
she's not spoiled. She's not super attached to me. She's very welcoming to other people. She loves playing with other kids. She's not shy and runs to my side and hides behind me, or just always wants
Exactly.
to be on top of me. I think her being so close to me, she grew that sense of independence and security.
Let me jump in here because I want to completely support you in everything you've just said. When we respond immediately to our baby's needs, our newborns, our infants, and our toddlers and our preschoolers, when we respond instantly to their needs, to their cues, to their cries, they learn to feel safe and secure. And from a place of safety and security, they grow their independence. Children who have been responded to quickly and regularly, they trust the environment around them, which allows them to step out and be friendly and be social and be have all those developing independent traits that are natural. Our children will grow, they will go away from us, they'll come back and check in, they'll go a little further, they'll come back and check in. This is exactly the same thing with their crying need for nourishment, for being held. And I love what you said about so just to complete that, those people who say to you or said to me, you're going to spoil them, they're never going to grow up and be independent, they're going to be a mommy's girl forever, you'll never be able to break that habit. That's actually the opposite
Mm-hmm.
of what happens when we break the trust that that infant needs to feel from us. When they cry and we leave them alone and let them cry for 5, 10, how many minutes? That's an eternity for a young baby. Of course, they say don't try sleep training, which I detest. I'm sorry, but I do. I don't like that term. When they recommend not doing it before 6 months, I recommend never doing it, as I'm hearing you say also. um, but when a child is left to cry, a baby is left to cry, it breaks the trust. It breaks their sense of knowing that the world is safe. It's a lot harder to be independent and to feel like you can venture out on your own if the world around you is not a safe place. It's really simple.
I think the hardest part about raising her and going through that part was just listening to everybody else's criticism and their opinions on how I'm doing it wrong.
Yes. Yes. Um, that exactly the hardest part for some of us. And so what I love is that you said you were a strong supporter of the cry it out method until you had a baby.
Yeah.
How many of you listeners knew exactly how you were going to parent and you would
Hmm.
want to tell your girlfriends, or you did tell your girlfriends what they ought to be doing because you knew until you had your baby?
Yeah, and I used to think, crying and giving in is them learning
Manipulating.
yes, exactly.
Yes.
Is them learning how they can manipulate us.
Yeah, no.
And then
No,
we learn it's not manipulation, it's learning boundaries. And
it's communication. It's really communication. A baby doesn't know how to talk and say, I'm hungry or my diaper's wet. They cry. And that's how they communicate. And the quicker we are to respond, the more they know that their communication is being heard. The other thing I wanted to point out and just touch deeper on was you said, even before she cried, you would know that she was hungry. Our infants, for any of us who've been a mama, we know that there are certain sounds that a baby makes. There are certain motions. They move their head from side to side. It's called rooting. They're looking for the breast. They're looking for the nipple. They're trying to smell to see if they can see where that milk is. This is in the very young infants, right? And so when your baby starts that rooting behavior, when they make the, there's a certain cry that's, I'm feeling hungry. Where is it? Where is it? Where is it? Our infants, and I love that you wore your baby, the baby wearing. I'm so glad that that has come into vogue. When I was a young mama 35 years ago, 36 years ago, I was a bit odd in that I wore my baby all the time. And I was at the soccer field watching a little nephew of mine, great nephew, play soccer the other day, and his mama has a new baby, my niece, and the baby started fussing. So went back to mama. Mama put him in the pack she was wearing in the front. And I said, oh, has he gone off to sleep? And she said, no, he's nursing. I'm like, oh, that's awesome. And you couldn't tell. She just had her shirt tucked up underneath. And, baby wearing, I'm a huge supporter of that. So we should have a chat all about that one day, and the pros about that. But that rooting behavior and that early little kind of sound that babies do, when we respond to that, they don't even have to start crying. We just know that that's them saying, I'm hungry. Where's my food? Right?
yeah.
So good.
Yeah, and I think maybe the cry it out and sleep training, I think that's all coming with, the fact that two parents have to work now, and it's not so natural anymore.
I
And
know. It's so, what I want to say there is, we are trying to make our babies do what we need them to do to support our lifestyle.
yes,
And what
yes.
I said early in the column is we are a society that is perpetually exhausted
Hmm.
because both parents have to work, and then they have to come home and do all the stuff that the one parent who stayed at home before used to take care of, in the perfect scenario. Normally it was the mama. She would be at home. She would be looking after the children, bathing them, dressing them, cleaning all the laundry, keeping the house clean, and making the food. Now, two parents are outside of the home working full time, or at home working full time, and they have to do all that other stuff. We're exhausted.
Yeah.
And so now we're trying to make our babies do what we need them to do so we can get some sleep. I'm sorry. That's not okay with me.
Yeah, and it's I don't want it to sound like we're mom shaming or any, like it's hard. It's hard during this time. It's
Mm-hmm.
everything's so expensive. I am every day I'm so grateful that, I mean, I'm not so happy that I had to raise my daughter during a pandemic, but my husband was able to support us. And I'm so grateful that he understood the importance of me staying home to raise our kid and teaching her the way we want her to learn and to grow up. And I'm so grateful
Mm-hmm.
that he supported that and allowed me to do that for our daughter, because she had a consistent raising. Con-
Yes.
she had consistency throughout her development, which I think really helped her. And it's hard if you have to go back to work and breastfeed and pumping. And I think breastfeeding
Mm.
is something that helped her so much, and me, that she didn't have stomach problems, and we had to try different formulas and different
Mm-hmm.
bottles. Like, it's just more natural. And for me, with my experience, it was so much easier just being able to breastfeed her and knowing what I'm putting into my body and putting that into her body.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So there's so much there. And we definitely are not aiming to mom shame. I mean, that's just so sad that people feel that and feel attacked so much out there in the world of social media and everywhere in the world now. But um just to refocus on the actual topic of cry it out, because there's so much here and it's so full of lots of different emotions, whether you're breastfeeding, whether you're bottle feeding, whether you're back at work, whether you're home at work, whether you're able to not work, whether you're a single or solo mama, whether you have
Mhm.
a husband who can support you or a partner who can support you while you stay home. There's so many different topics here.
Yes.
And I just wanted to bring it back to the whole notion of, should we leave our babies to cry it out so that they will learn to sleep through the night? And my deepest desire is that you don't go that route. There are different ways that we can support our needs for sleep. And there are different ways to get our babies to sleep in a little bit longer segments. Sometimes it works. And one of those ways is to, once your baby is ready for some solid food, give them a bit of filling food around the time of bedtime. One of the things about babies needing to eat every couple of hours in the beginning, often every 3 or 4 hours. One of the things that's important to remember is that our infants' stomachs are so tiny.
Mhm.
They need the calories and they need the nourishment sometimes every couple of hours in those first few weeks and the first few months. And then it'll stretch out to 3 hours or 4 hours. But it's a physiological need. They can't stuff more in there. Once they're 6 months old or 8 months old, and you're able to feed them a nice big serving of something filling, that might help them sleep for a bit longer. Now you're going to have to choose whether you take some of that early, longer sleep time for some alone time or from some intimate time with your partner, or you're just going to try to sleep those whole 4 or 5 or 6, praise God, hours to yourself to get some sleep. And I really encourage you to decide how you're going to use those hours of sleep depending on how your own exhaustion level is, right?
Mhm.
So that can be one simple solution. And it doesn't always work, but it sure can help. And then, of course, asking grandma or auntie if you don't have to go to work in the morning. Excuse me, asking somebody to have the baby for a couple of hours in the morning while you get a little bit of extra sleep, and sleeping when baby sleeps, and letting the house get messier than you're used to it getting, you know,
Mhm.
those different ways of dealing. Yeah.
And during the waking hours, when they're up and, interacting, stimulating them so that when it is time to sleep, they're tired, and getting outside and getting some fresh air. Because, I mean, for me at least, if it's a rainy day and I'm stuck inside all day, like, I get overtired, and at night I can't sleep because I've just been inside all day, and it throws off my routine. So getting outside with them and going for a walk. Maybe they're not exerting energy, but you are, and taking them with you.
Mm-hmm. That's another great thing you've just reminded me of. And honestly, I can't remember if it's in the column because I recorded the column a little while ago. Is about how the okay, this is amazing, you guys. The milk that we produce in our bodies in the daytime is a little bit different than the milk we produce in our bodies at night.
Mm-hmm.
Our nighttime milk has more melatonin in it, which helps with sleep. You might have heard of melatonin as a supplement you can take if you're suffering with some insomnia. We naturally produce melatonin. And the reason I thought of it from what you said was getting out into the daylight, especially early in the day, is super helpful for the development and the creation inside our body of our own melatonin. Getting out into the sunlight, or even the light coming through a cloudy sky, is fine too, because it's brighter, and the natural light is more important than the lights we have indoors. Putting the lights lower an hour before bedtime, dimming the lights, having less of the bright lights on, having one lamp on, going into the bedroom half an hour before it's time to sleep with that low lighting, quietness in the house, turn off any TV sounds there might be, movie sounds there might be, whatever, all that stuff, turn off the screens, and create a pattern in our bodies that helps our bodies to know. It's called our circadian rhythm. Our circadian rhythm tells our bodies, oh, now it's time to start getting ready for sleep. Oh, now it's time to go to sleep. And then in the mornings, eventually, when you're done with night nursing, eventually, um, in the mornings, oh, now it's time to wake up. Oh, now there's more light. Now there's more activity. Now there's more sound. That all helps us to create our circadian rhythm, and it will help with sleep patterns. And the melatonin in your breast milk in the nighttime is so important to developing a proper sleep pattern. Now, mamas who are breastfeeding, I encourage you to ask your lactation person, um, or a doctor how you might help your baby to develop that melatonin if they're not able to get it from your breast milk. I am, again, no mama shaming here. Just do the research to find out what you can do to help. But that piece blew my mind. I think I saw that actually recently on a lactation Instagram feed about the melatonin in our nighttime milk. I
Yeah.
love that. I love
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. There's so many benefits to breastfeeding. I love breastfeeding. I thought it made it so much easier.
I mean, I'm a strong advocate for breastfeeding, of course, without the mama shaming. And we can have a few, I'd love to have a few different episodes over time on the topic of breastfeeding, and get a lactation consultant in to speak with us. But for now, I hope you got some support in leaning away from the idea of sleep training and the cry it out method. I think it's far more damaging in the long run. People will argue, oh, it only took them X number of days to do this. But if you will remember, the one piece I want to bring now, just as we close off from the column, is the research that's been done is that the baby is not actually learning how to self soothe. Their instinctual brain that says, I need help, and help is not coming, causes them to stop crying because the instinctual brain says, I better be quiet so that the predators won't know I'm here, because there's nobody here to help me if the predators come. To me, that says it all. they're not actually learning to self-soothe. They're going into an innate brain pattern that tells them to be quiet now for safety, for self-preservation.
Yeah.
So respond to your baby's cues. And you know, the thing I want to say is I have a child who is in her 30s. Those days, yes, they're hard. Those nights are hard. Those days when you're suffering from exhaustion are so challenging. You will live through it, and just do your best to be in the moment with your baby, responding to his or her needs, and give them everything you've got. These times will pass.
Yes. And that skin to skin could be healing for you and for her.
Oh, skin to skin.
We don't need to get into
100%.
that. But
That's a whole nother
yes.
episode. But yeah, that's another one. If your baby is actually really fussy and can't settle, take layers of clothing off and actually get physical skin on skin. So good.
Yeah.
It can heal jaundice too, by the way, in a baby who
wow.
comes born with jaundice. Yeah. Partially, but that's one of the key elements to clearing up newborn jaundice.
Okay, well, thank you, Emma, for sharing all your knowledge on this.
You're so welcome. I hope it makes a difference for people. Thank you for listening, everybody, and let us know what you think.
Yeah.
We're open. We're open to the conversations.
Yeah. All right. Thank you.
Love you.
Hey, so thanks for listening to this episode. Here are 4 things we'd like you to take away. Number 1 being crying is a cue that your baby needs something. Number 2, try to get out during the day and be as active as possible so your kid can be tired by nighttime and also create their circadian rhythm. Number 3, ask for help. When the baby sleeps, you sleep, and get used to maybe having a messy house for a while. It's going to be okay. It will all get cleaned, but our mental health is more important. And number 4, crying it out is not learning to self-soothe. It is their instinctual brain telling them to be quiet because help is not coming. Paying attention to your baby's crying will increase their bonding, trust, happiness, ability to love and to feel loved, and their independence. Thank you. We hope you enjoyed it.
Thanks for being here with us in our virtual village. Hit subscribe so you're notified about our newest episodes each week.
And hey, did you get something from today's episode? I know I sure did. Be kind. Hit that share button and send it to your mama friends so they can benefit from it too.
Also, by leaving us a review, you will be helping more parents out there to find answers to the questions that might be keeping them up at night.
We'd love you to follow us on Instagram and our Facebook page at The Village Parenting Pod.
And we'd love you to direct message us. Let us know your questions that we could address in future episodes and how we can serve you better.
This podcast is sponsored by the Singing Alma's private parent coaching and workshop offerings. We also now have a Buy Me a Coffee option for a fun way that you could support this podcast. Link is in the show notes.